so for years now, GoPro has been the standard for recording FPV and drone action camera, all the way from Phantoms to FPV drones. But for a lot of people, these action cameras are a little bit too expensive. And what happens when these action cameras are too heavy for smaller drones like this one right here? Hence, we have the naked GoPro and companies just like Insta360 with the SMO 4K, which deliver great performing images, but not sacrificing in weight. Now, those are all good cameras, but what about people who can't afford those? Maybe those are too expensive. What's the point of having a camera that you're just probably gonna damage in a simple drone crash? So you have companies like Firefly with this right here. This is a really amazing deal, at least on paper. So we're gonna find out today if this is really worth your money. So anyways, let's get on with it. Let's open this up and see what you get once you order this. Turn this around, slip this up. Boom, you're greeted with a manual and a pretty basic instruction manual. Nothing more than that. Whoo, here's your camera right here. Pretty nice, I'm excited already. You have this foam right here which protects the camera. Take that out, and this thing is tiny, guys. Wow. Put this to the side. Let's see what you have under here. You have some cables. Looks like a pretty nice USB-A to USB-C cable. And this is a USB-C camera, so that's great for just powering the device. And looks like you have a simple connector here that goes from the camera to your drone. Now, a lot of drones are now coming with cables right here, as you can see in this image right here, and it's already coded and connected to the flight controller, so you can power up action camera just like these. Now, this plug here is different. This is I would say this is kind of a standard. This is made for naked GoPros, and you also have some for the SMO 4K. So there's really no standard for these plugs right now, and that makes sense why this plug is a little bit different than this one. But if you do want to keep this camera as your main recording device, you can actually wire this up to your flight controller or a power source on your drone. Now, if you don't have a power source or a flight controller with maybe a UART, they came up with a simple and easy way to power up your camera. This goes to your balance lead, and this will provide a 5-volt power source to your camera. So most likely I'll be using this for now, although most of my drones do have a power source for a camera. Pretty nice touch. That's really impressive, and that comes with the camera. Last but not least, well, not last but not least, let's see here. You have a case or holder for the camera. So you have to mount these cameras somehow. That should be pretty cool. And here you go. Last but not least, you have a lens hood here to prevent light flares or sun flares while you're flying. You can also opt to purchase this camera with a ND filter as well, which is good for cinematics, reducing or slowing down your shutter speed and having natural motion blur. Now, they say that this is the standard size for a GoPro, this lens here. So I do have ND filters right here for my Hero 3. Let's see if it fits. And sure enough, this thing fits really well. And this is from a Hero 3. All right, so let's talk about this camera holder right here. I think this is probably, to me, the star of the show here. Just slip this in here, and that is a tight fit. And you just mount this to your drone. Now, you say, well, my drone doesn't have this connection right here. And they thought about that. If you look on the opposite side, you have a smaller connection point right here. And you can mount, and it looks like, yeah, it fits. And that's pretty cool. Now, you say, okay, well, my camera is now upside down. What happens to the image? Well, you can either do it in post-production. Most of us have editors, and you can just flip the image 180 degrees, or there is an app for this, and you can actually flip the image because you know you're gonna be using this inverted. So that's pretty cool. And actually, there is a way you can do it with these buttons as well, and we'll talk about that once we power this device up. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the specs here, since that is the most important thing about this camera. Why buy this camera if it doesn't have the specifications for you? So as far as the image quality on this uses a Sony sensor, and you can think about this as a 60 frames per second camera, since that's the only parameter that you cannot change. Now, besides that, the resolution on this camera is a 4K camera. That's the highest resolution. You can also reduce that to a 2.7K resolution or a 2.5K resolution. With that said, this camera does have electronic image stabilization. That is only available in the 2.5K resolution. If you are going to use the 2.7 or the 4K resolution, then you don't have that. you may have to use your editor to stabilize the footage. Now, as of time of recording this video, you can't really use Real Steady Go to stabilize the footage on here. It's not confirmed that there's gyro information in this. Besides that, we talked about the cord here in the back, but you do have to remember now there's 3-cell, 4-cell, 6-cell drones on the market. Make sure you have a 5-volt source going to this, otherwise you will fry this thing. This camera weighs around 34 grams, which is really impressive. Now this thing, it is plastic. It feels like aluminum, but it is plastic. 34 grams is really good and really impressive. We have our Hero 8 here and our Hero 3. Now the Hero 8 weighs around approximately 117 grams. That's pretty significant. Now you're talking about drones. For example, this drone right here that I just unboxed. If you're interested in seeing this drone here, I did a review on this. This is the Cinelog 30 by GEPRC, and this drone weighs 140 grams. So this thing weighs almost as heavy, or almost as much as this drone right here. So now you see the real need for a lightweight action camera to record your flights. All right guys, so let's put an SD card in here, power this up, and see how the image looks. All right, so we have our SD card here. I'm gonna load this in. Yeet. So the SD card is loaded in here. I don't think I have to format this. So the biggest thing here, if you're using this connection here with the balance port, is the polarity on this. Make sure you have the polarity correct. I wanna make sure it's correct as well. And on both sides of it, it does show negative over here, positive on the other side here. Here's your balance port. Every battery has one of these. Negative would be the black, and then the positive are all the red. Once you put this in the correct way, this thing should light up. So let's see here, negative, boom, and we have a green light. So this thing is powered the correct way. Cool, so let's just plug this in, USB-C, 5 volts. And here you go, you have a light. It went blue, then it went to green, so we're ready to go here. Now it's labeled here pretty well. Let's hit the record button and see how this quality looks. There it goes, now it's flashing green, so we are recording. Let's do a little sample footage here. How's the quality of the image? Do you like it? This is a 4K 60 frames per second image. Now, to change the resolution, that was 4K 60 frames per second. This is the default resolution when you power this up. To change the resolution, just press and hold the record button for 3 seconds and it should change. That's 3 beeps. Now we are in 2.7K 60 frames per second. Let's record it. How's the image quality now? It should be fairly similar. 2.7K, 4K is pretty high resolution. And now we're gonna go to the third mode. 4 beeps, and that's the 2.5K 60 frames per second. And in this mode, you also have stabilization. So let's see how that looks. Do you see any difference here? Obviously it's a little bit lower resolution, but how's the stabilization? Is it better? All right, now in the default mount here, the GoPro mount at the bottom here, the camera is in the right orientation, right side up. Now, if you want to use this smaller connection here for smaller drones, you will have to use this, but now the camera will be upside down. Now, I said earlier, you can change that image in post with your editor. You can do it right here on the camera as well. Now, once you power up the camera, you press and hold the power button for 3 seconds. All right, we got 3 beeps. So now the image should be inverted and the camera should be upside down, or the image should be upside down. So if I flip the camera 180 degrees, now the image should be right side up. And this is the way I intend to mount it on this quad here. I'm gonna mount this camera to this drone. We're gonna go for a flight and then, yeah, you'll see the image. All right, guys, we are back in the studio and I've had some time to look at the footage, and this camera it's amazing, honestly. Simply put, it's pretty cool. Now, the first thing I noticed immediately was how sharp the 4K was. The 4K on this camera is pretty good, really sharp. Maybe the 60 frames per second is helping this thing look really smooth. The second thing I noticed as well was just the saturation. Now, it's really saturated. The saturation is very high, and then the contrast is also kind of high. I'm not a camera snob by any means, but yeah, you can see how contrasty the image is. And for me, it was just a tad bit warm. So if you're looking to use this image straight from the camera and just post it online, you might be fine. But if you're really picky about it, you might have to go into your editor and just tweak maybe the white balance or something. I don't know the bitrate on this camera. I'm using a pretty decent SD card on here, but the bitrate on this has to be relatively high because there's no artifacted, no like mushy colors on there. So let's talk about something that's pretty much overlooked, especially in FPV cameras, and that's the audio quality. The audio quality in this thing it just exceeded my expectation. And I mean, as I said, that's something that we always overlook because who really cares about audio? It's just a buzzing of the blades and the, you know, whatever. But as you can see, when I hit the record button in the studio, even the voice came out pretty clear. Now, on my last flight, I will annotate the videos showing which one was stabilized, which one was not stabilized. In the stabilized video, it looked pretty good. Very smooth, I wasn't doing any erratic movements with the drone here. The only thing I noticed with that video, it seems to me like either the bit rate is lower, but most likely there is a crop as well. The resolution is therefore 2.5K. So with that said, this thing gets a 4 out of 5 stars or 4 to 5 lows. This thing is a pretty amazing camera. The value alone makes it worth it. Now, as I said, between $120 to $140, and this thing may go up in price depending on the demand. It may go up in price depending on if there's enough supply to make these things. This thing has Wi-Fi built into it, so you can connect your phone or your tablet to it and then change settings. But as of right now, as of time of filming, yes, there's no app available to change those or to even monitor and see your field of view. I do think that can be worked on in the future, not a big deal there. And this would be a great camera if it had a flat profile. So forget about all the colors and the sharpness. If there was a flat profile on here, I could just say flat profile, put it into my computer, edit it to my liking, my standards, or anyone's standards. And that would make this almost amazing. Now, those are the things that stop from getting a 5 out of 5, but a 4 out of 5 is not bad at all. All of the problems that I mentioned can be fixed with a firmware or a software update. The app can be fixed with an update, the flat profile, the ability to change the saturations. That could all be done in an app or on the setting here. Those are all firmware updates. The sensor and the hardware in this is pretty much awesome. That's another thing. It has a USB-C port on here, so you can use any kind of brick or charger if you intend to use this camera for any purpose beyond just FPV. You just plug the USB in here and it's powered up. So you can use it indoors, outdoors, whatever, in your car. It has multiple purposes, guys. I highly recommend it. Honestly, I haven't had a bad experience with this yet. I am just beyond the fact that what it is, it's just going to stir up competition in the market, which is what we want. I think the cheapest camera on the market now is by, I think, iFlight. And that one is, I think, significantly more than this one because it's pretty much a repackaged SMO 4K. And we know the price of a GoPro. So beyond just the internals of the SMO 4K or the GoPro, everything here is done for you. They've decased the camera for you, put it in a case for you. You have the ports, you have the buttons. There's no labor, you just plug this in and you're off to the races, guys. So anyways, what do you think about the image, guys? Is this tolerable for you? I want to hear your opinion because is it just me just hyped up because this is a pretty cool, in my opinion, cool product? If you have any questions about this camera as well, leave them down in the comment section below. I will happily answer those. And if you've done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate that. And then you'll be notified whenever I do drop a new FPV or camera video because I will be doing a lot more videos on this camera because I have a lot of drones that could actually use this light camera. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Peace. Back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at the HawkEye X-Lite, HawkEye FireFly. Today we are taking a look at the HawkEye FireFly in the room.
You're doing great.
All right, guys. So yeah, and if you haven't done so already, please consider Let's see if this is the best. Let's see if this is the Take 5.